Hello, Necedah School Community. This is Tanya Kitlowski, Superintendent for Necedah Area School District. It is great to be with you today to be sharing our third of the four-part series regarding our financial forecast, as well as just general information that can be helpful to our local taxpayers to understand kind of the financial position that we're in regarding how we're funded as a K-12 public school. So the last session, I talked a little bit about the components that are included inside what is called the revenue cap. That is the authorized amount that we're able to generate for revenue. And I shared how that calculation is decided for each individual school district. And that calculation is the same, but each school district is capped at different amounts based on their spending back in 92-93. And so since that time that calculation was put into place, low spending districts continue to be the lowest spending districts, high spending districts continue to be the highest spending districts. Spending has a direct correlation to revenue. You can't spend what you don't have in public schools. And so as we are one of the lowest spending districts in the state of Wisconsin, that means our revenue is one of the lowest districts in Wisconsin. So we're going to talk a little bit now about a concept that is really old, but it was an idea that was put forward when public schools were trying to be funded 2/3 by state funding or the equalization aid, because remember we have two components of how schools calculate their revenue, and that is through one, state aid, equalization aid, or two, local property tax for that particular district's community. And so at one point, the idea was that each revenue limit would be full funded by 2/3 by the equalization aid. If you look at this chart here, you'll see in 2008, 65% of our capped revenue was based on that idea of that 2/3. So 65% was paid by state and 35 was paid by local taxpayers to equal that revenue limit or that cap in revenue that are defined through that calculation, that state aid formula. If you look at now where we're at in 2024, you'll see that it has totally inverted to be 35% state aid and 65% is paid for by local taxpayers. The proportion that our taxpayers actually pay is directly related to the property value within our community. We are considered a property rich or property wealthy school district, which again, I've explained in our first session together, does not reflect the demographics of our community, but because of our particular location of being by one of the third largest lakes in the state, it does have an impact on that value. And so this has really changed, and it has impacted our taxpayers greatly. So what starts to happen is because districts have not been able to generate additional revenue, especially generate revenue to equal that of inflationary increases, districts have been forced to go to operational referendum. And in April 2022, you will see that around the state there was $1.2 billion worth of referenda asked on that particular election year. That $1.2 billion certainly stresses the importance of a lack of funding for our public schools. If there's anything that communicates that, it's that people, districts have had to go to their local taxpayers to ask for the money needed to operationalize their current programs. And so if you look at the total percentage of our state budget, you will see that K-12 public schools are about 32% of that state budget. So this is our operational referendum that took place in April 18. We are explaining that as how we decided what we would need to continue to operationalize our schools. That was after the failed referendum of 2017. And we had passed a referendum at that time, and then we looked to renew that referendum in April 2022 and did pass it at that time. And so, although $950,000 was short of our projected deficit, it did help us address the needs to maintain some of our current programming. That we did add some of that back in 2018-19 when we cut positions that took away options and opportunities for our kids. And so, renewing that operational referendum in April 2022 helped us to maintain some of those programs that we had put back into place when we tried to balance the budget in 2017-18 when our first one failed. So you will see on this particular page also that when we passed that operational referendum in 18, we gave a projected mill rate on the April ballot. We told our taxpayers approximately what that mill rate would be in terms of the projections that we put out there regarding the financial impact. And you will see that in that particular year from 18-19, you will see that we outperformed that particular mill rate by a few 50 cents here, a little bit more than that. And then you will see that the state average mill rate was higher than we were. When you jump to 19 and 20, and this is for the 4 years of that operational referendum, you will see the same kind of scenario that played out. You'll see in 2021, that same scenario played out. You will see in 21-22, that scenario again played out. Here we're into the new operational referendum from 2022. We projected a $7.89 mill rate, that's per thousand, and we're in the first year, we're at $6.68 with a state average of 70.70. And then in 23-24, we had predicted a $7.67 rate, and we were at $6.22. So I'm not sure of the state average at this point, but it is definitely higher than $6.22. So each time that we outperform what we tell you, because we run very conservative projections, it is savings to our particular taxpayers. In April 2023, we passed a $7 million bond referendum. A bond referendum is the issuance of debt. And in our particular case, we were able to address needs and improve some facilities and things that we needed to maintain. We are able to do that by layering in new debt to our current debt. And on the next slide, I'll kind of show you what that looks like. What I can share right now, and it is breaking news within the last week, is that our projected increase due to interest rates was 4.7. So that is what we projected the rate would be, and it actually came in at 4.1. So we are actually able to save over $600,000 in that 20-year debt, which is money that we won't have to use from our taxpayers. So we're excited about that. There is a zero impact on our taxpayers this year regarding that debt service portion of the mill rate. So we'll talk about why the mill rate is what it is and why your taxes may have been impacted, but it has nothing to do with the referendum. That particular portion, we were able to layer in debt, new debt, sort of like the idea of refinancing. We're able to do that, and our rates were better than projected, which saves us money. So here is that plan I was talking about, that strategy about refinancing. And that idea is that at a certain point in time, we had debt falling off significantly because we used the money we saved on our first project. We used that to put into the principal of that particular loan or that debt payment. And so by doing that, we decreased it significantly enough that we could layer in new debt and not see that particular impact to our taxpayers. So our refinance strategy allowed us to move forward with additional debt without additional costs. And so that particular piece is what we talked about in April, before we passed that particular referendum in 2023. These are just some fiscal responsibilities regarding the board and things that they've done over the years. Regarding we under levied, meaning we were authorized to have a certain amount of revenue, and we decided to under levy, which helped to save our taxpayers money, and those were due to a couple commitments that we set at our community meetings. But we also realized savings from other areas. I've talked about them in basically the very first session. So if you want to go back to that video, you can see an explanation about some of those things that we did. This outlines some of our district improvements and how we're trying to find money to save so we can do additional things. Each time we save money in these areas by finding efficiencies, we're able to use that savings to continue to improve things in our school district. And that is an area that we can do that. So our final budget for 23-24, our revenue limit authority was $9 million, a little over that. We had debt, that is our current bond referendum, at $155,000, and then our equalization aid and things from other places. We take that away as $3 million, for a total levy of $6 million. That our portion will be picked up by our local taxpayers. So here it is, looking at it a different way that helps you understand why the mill rate is $6.22. We look at that total levy that our community, our local taxpayers will pick up. We look at the property value and we divide that. And then we multiply that by 1,000, and that helps people understand what the mill rate is per $1,000 of value. This is our mill rate history the last 25 years, and this is where I'm going to end today. This is our history that shows where a mill rate was in 2015. It was up to that $12.14 to where it is that we're at today at 2024 at $6.22. These rates include the operational referenda that we have passed, so it gives you the full perspective of the actual impact on our tax rate. And so we are at the lowest in 25 years, and that's all I have data for. And some of that is seen around the state and trends too, but in general, in the Seed Area School District, in terms of our tax levy rate or our tax rate, is definitely lower than the state average. So we're happy with that for our local community. So there's where I'd like to end today. We'll pick it up tomorrow, and with this information, we'll talk a little bit more specificity around local impact and you as a local taxpayer, how that impacts you and what that looks like on your particular bill. So we will do that tomorrow. Thank you so much for joining me for session number 3 of 4, and I look forward to joining you again tomorrow for our last video. And if we need to have one more, because there's lots of questions, we will do that too. Thank you so much for joining me today, and just call me or send a message if you have other questions. Thank you. Have a good rest of the day.